Hello, and sorry it's taken so long to get to this chapter 6. Hopefully it's not too late, but if you've already studied it, good for you. Okay, so this chapter is all about cultural and environmental factors in interpersonal communication. So obviously, since we have some terminology that's going to be a little confusing, first we're going to talk about what is culture. We're going to talk about the functions of culture and cultural characteristics and how cultures communicate. We're also going to talk about improving our interpersonal communication skills, okay? So let's get started. So, culture. It's defined and it's defined differently, okay? Different groups of people tend to define their cultures differently, but they usually, one culture will share perceptions of the world, it'll influence beliefs, values, norms, and rules. I know this PowerPoint slide kind of breaks all the rules. Sorry about that. But it influences beliefs and values and norms, and it affects your behavior. So if you think about a culture, it's formed by a group of people that interact over the course of a lifetime. Now, if we were talking about, we could talk about age ranges, right? So we could talk about the different generations. Those could be different cultures. We could talk about ethnicities and where people are from. Those could be different cultures. Talk about how you were raised growing up, if you were a country kid or a city kid, or urban versus rural. You could talk about all kinds of different cultures involved. But humans are hardwired to learn culture. We have to know how we are raised, and that influences our culture. So we know that cultures facilitate a shared perception of the world. Isn't that a nice way to say it? But when we're talking about beliefs, values, norms, and rules, beliefs are the assumptions or convictions held by, it could be one person, it could be a group of people, or it could be a culture about truth or experience of something. For example, I know that if you looked up death rituals, okay, that would be funeral processions, things like that. I love being in New Orleans and watching how they deal with funereal practices. They have the dirge where they're doing the music, and they walk all the way with a second line, a whole bunch of people behind them, to the cemetery, and then they bury the person, or they put the person in the above ground, sarcophagus, if you will. I can't remember the name of it right now. Sorry about that. Anyway, but when they leave, it's jazz music. Everybody's happy because they're celebrating their life, but they never walk in straight lines around anywhere. They're always going in corners and cutting curves, because the belief is that if ghosts can only follow you in a straight line. That's a unique cultural belief. I love it. Values are important or lasting principles or standards held by culture about the desirable, appropriate course of action or outcomes, what you should do in different situations. It's how they believe it. In the Catholic culture, okay, you should go in for Mass, and you should go into confessional and all of that stuff. Okay, norms are the informal guidelines about what you should do, okay, within specific cultures. It's just kind of the accepted thing to do here, and it may change. The same ethnic group can have different norms depending on where they live. And then rules, explicit guidelines, they're written down. This is what you have to do. All right, so what is a co-culture? That's where the regional and stuff comes in, okay? Co-cultures can be economic co-cultures, rich standing next to poor kind of thing. Social co-cultures, ethnic, religious, all kinds of groups that are together in one place. They don't always have to be the same culture. Okay, simply belonging to a cultural group doesn't mean that everyone in that culture is going to be identical. They're going to be influenced by other people. So that's called a cultural pattern, or co-culture. Different groups within the group, if you will. Then a microculture even takes it further. Okay, a microculture is patterns of behavior that are influenced by your cultural beliefs and values and norms and all that kind of stuff, but it could be very local, very localized, okay? It says here it gives you a sense of belonging on a much more localized level. Like, what if all of the people in your co-culture happen to get together on this particular day to do these particular things, but when you go elsewhere, you notice that those people, they're the same religion, they're the same group, but they're not doing the same things. Why not? Because you are part of a microculture. I hope that made sense to you. But what purpose does a culture serve? It provides a collective self-esteem, okay? A collective self-esteem is the stereotyping, and sometimes it has positive or negative outcomes, but it's a feeling of belonging with this group. And it provides that normative view. I am who I am because I am with these people and we are wonderful. Now, there are different types of collective self-esteem, okay? So we need to talk about that briefly. And I put the definition on there. It may make this a little bit too unwieldy. This is a very full slide. I'm sorry about that. Again, I'm just breaking all the rules on this one, aren't I? Anyway, collective self-esteem is an aspect of your self-worth or self-image that kind of stems from interactions with others in your social group, right? And there are 4 different types of collective self-esteem. You've got the private, membership, public, and it's important to identity. Private is the degree to which you evaluate positively evaluate your own group. Okay, private is how you personally, privately evaluate your group. So if you think it's wonderful, then it's a positive, private, collective self-esteem. Membership is if you see themselves as a good member of this group. Now, if you think of yourself as an outlaw, an outlier, the black sheep, whatever in this social group, then you don't have that collective self-esteem, do you? No, but membership esteem, you feel like you're a good member of the group. Public collective is the degree to which non-members, okay, of the group evaluate a group. Think about if you're thinking about joining a group. You're thinking about being a part of this group. And so you have to spend time with that group to find out, and so you're evaluating it either positively or negatively, but that's, how do people see this group? How do you see this group? How do non-members see this group? And the importance to identity is the degree to which individuals, membership is important to you, to be a member of this group. So even though they seem all kind of like similar things, they're actually very different when you look at them from a sociological perspective. Okay, now the collective self-esteem can impact individuals differently. People with high collective self-esteem have a tendency to be more favorable with others from other cultures. Intercultural communications is easier, you feel good about it, you have no problem interacting with others. People with low collective self-esteem have a tendency to be less social with people outside your culture. And that's because they might have more negative emotions, lower self-evaluations, and they just don't feel like, this is a good place to be, but they're associated with it, and so they just kind of avoid other societies. So what happens when an individual feels like their heritage is viewed positively? That's great. If they feel like it's viewed negatively, then they have negative emotions, lower self-evaluations. And I put groups with high and low. I think I meant to put some samples in there. Sorry, I guess I didn't do that. I will look at my notes later. So stereotyping happens often to different cultures, but stereotypes are a set of beliefs about a personal attribute of a social group. They can be negative, they can be positive, and sometimes they're accurate, sometimes they're very inaccurate, It depends on the person developing the stereotype. For example, when you think of the word biker, do you have positive connotations or negative connotations? I have both. because I was actually married to a biker once. Okay, and so I had good experiences and I had negative experiences. Now, can I tell you whether or not they're all accurate or inaccurate? I know some of my stereotypes in my head are inaccurate, but I know that some of them are accurate. Okay, there are different types of stereotypes. We have cultural stereotypes and personal stereotypes. Cultural would be like when I said bikers. Okay, you're going to have certain things run through your head, negative or positive, but that's all stereotyping. Not every individual is going to fit that stereotype. You get the idea. Now, problematic stereotypes are when people categorize by making snap decisions. All members of the group are like this. And it's not always true, is it? No. Many stereotypes are based on ignorance about the other person's culture. Normative views are the rules, regulations, and norms, okay, the general beliefs and the way they behave governing a group. And individuals tend to view their own culture as generally right, moral, ethical. That's called ethnocentrism. My culture is better than anyone's, okay? And that's ethnocentrism. We are looking more towards ethno-relativity, but you need to understand ethnocentrism. Think about patriotism. People say that Americans are very patriotic. We fly our flag for all kinds of things. We take our hat off. We do the national anthem. We say the pledge every morning in school. And other countries might look at us like, what? But those are our norms, right? Those are our rules and regulations, our norms. And so if you feel like all of this is perfect and right, great. But you're nice and ethnocentric as long as you don't hold it against others if they don't do the same thing. Now, how does culture impact communication? Why did that go onto 2 lines like that? It was all 1 line before, I swear. Anyway, because different cultures approach relationships differently, okay? I meant to make this into 3 slides, but I was in a hurry to get this thing done. See, and that was all on 1 line again. Oh, my goodness, I'm going to have to work on my computer. Low context communication means that there's not a lot of extra information. The information is shared verbally and it's very specific to what you want, what you need, etc. High context means that a lot of the information being shared is being shared through gestures, social customs and nuances. Tone of voice might play a huge role. Think of the eye contact thing in some of the Asian cultures when they bow, and some people bow lower because the other person is of a higher social status. Okay, these would be high context situations. And there are 3 general contextual categories. You've got communication, how people communicate, cultural orientation, what is their culture like versus our culture, and business. Just about every business incorporates aspect of culture into their business routines, but sometimes the business has their own routines that are part of it. So how do different cultures approach relationships differently? Because that's what this class is about, right? Well, there's 6 different cultural impacts, okay? And we're going to look at how individuals approach work. And we're talking about relationships, but we're still talking about business relationships too, right? You have the low versus high power distance, okay? Power distance is how close you stand. If you notice, you go into some people's offices and there is a giant desk and they're sitting behind the desk, and then they have seats over here arranged and they are so far away, but you know that the person behind the desk is the one in charge. And yet sometimes you go into those same offices, the person will get up from the desk, they will move around, say, join me over here, and they'll have a seating area where it's much closer seating. Okay, less power distance. Individualism versus collectivism. Individualists are characteristics, they're very self-reliant, okay, self-motivated. The U.S. is pretty much an individualistic culture. We believe in personal freedom, personal privacy. We celebrate personal achievement. In collectivist cultures, some characteristics: they value cooperation and harmony. They consider the needs of the group to be more important than the needs of the individual. Kind of sounded like something out of Star Trek, Spock, the needs of the... Anyway, we'll move on. Masculinity versus femininity. Some cultures focus on items like, okay, masculine culture, believe it or not, concentrates more on items like earnings, recognition, advancement, meeting the challenge, getting a challenge. Feminine cultures focus more on having a good working relationship with your manager, with your coworkers, cooperating with people at work, and security. Low versus high uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance, of course, is the extent to which the culture as a whole is fearful of ambiguous or unknown situations. Think you can compare that to going out on a date the first time and you have this unknown situation. You have to ask questions and all that kind of stuff to reduce uncertainty. Well, uncertainty avoidance, it depends. Cultures with high uncertainty avoidance view unknown situations as threatening. Okay, higher levels of anxiety, neuroticism, higher levels of prejudice, and ideological and political and religious fundamentalists are quite often high uncertainty cultures. Okay, low uncertainty cultures are much more welcoming to all comers, anybody who comes in. Cultural orientation, you can also have the long-term versus short-term orientation. Long-term, the individuals are focused on the future, not so much now. I mean, now is important, but you're looking towards the future. You can make a 20-year plan, a 10-year plan, and work towards achieving that goal. They focus on persistence, okay? Short-term orientation, you're focusing either on the now or in the past. Short-term orientations, you're kind of obsessed with what happened before. And so they do have a high respect for the past and the cultural traditions that influence what you're doing now. Now, there's another bit, it has to do with indulgence and restraint. And I took it off because we don't need it here. Okay, what is the face negotiation theory? Face is your reputation. I know that many people are used to hearing this from an Asian perspective. You must save face. But there are three types of face, but we're using it in here. So there are three types of face. You've got the self face, you've got the other face, and you've got mutual face. And I know that sounds weird. Self face is, of course, saving your own face. You, keeping your own reputation good. Other face is you're worried about somebody else's reputation. Mutual is you're concerned for both of you, both the interactions and the relationship. Mutual face is the best way to go. Now, how to improve your intercultural communication skills? Well, one, become ethno-relative, okay? Become culturally intelligent. Acknowledge that people of other cultures have value. Their belief systems are just as important to them as yours are to you, and become more accepting of the co-cultures and other cultures and the micro-cultures, okay? So engage in culturally mindful interactions. And one way to do that is, let's look at this. Cultural intelligence means the degree to which you are capable of communicating competently in varying cultural situations, right? There are four types of cultural intelligence. Cognitive CQ is the degree to which you have that cultural knowledge. Motivational CQ is cultural intelligence, okay? Just letting you know, CQ. I should have put that up at the top, where cultural intelligence, CQ. All right. Motivational CQ is degree to which you desire to engage in intercultural interactions and you can adapt to other people. Some people have low motivational CQ. They do not want to adapt. Some people have high motivational CQ. They are willing to adapt to anything and accept differing environments. Metacognitive CQ It's the individual, are you consciously aware of your interactions? Okay? Because you want to have a higher level of effective interpersonal experiences with people from other cultures. And behavioral CQ. It's how you behave in a situation consistent with what you know of other cultures. Now, we were talking about culturally mindful interactions. Somehow these slides got out of order. So how to have those culturally mindful interactions. Always be present in the moment. Don't judge. Recognize that other cultures are going to have different belief systems. Pay attention. Pay attention. Attention means focusing on what's going on around you, not just at the specific thing that you're seeing or behavior that you're watching or words that you're hearing, but focus on the meaning of it. Your intention has to be willingness to accept differences and attitude. If you treat it as an ethno-relative moment, an attitude of, I can do this, this is awesome, okay, it's not how I would have thought about it, but I respect their beliefs, then you are engaged in culturally mindful interactions. Okay, that is this chapter. I will get the next chapter up and running as soon as I can. Y'all have a fabulous afternoon, morning, evening, whatever it may be, and talk to you later.